Good morning, everybody. I'm thrilled by the fact that we're able to reach so many more people than in prior years. And also, I'm humbled by the fact that you've taken time out of your diaries to come and be part of our annual general meeting. My report this year is going to cover the activities from 1st of March 2019 through till the end of February 2020. But I'm also going to cover some of the highlights of our activities during our unprecedented 2020 year. I do hope that by the time when you've ended your time with us this morning, that you will leave inspired and fully persuaded about the power of consumer financial education to effect a significant, positive, and sustainable change within our South African economy. So I'm going to focus on a few of the highlights that have taken place during the period. And I hope that you will be inspired, and I hope that you will take some good messages away with it. And at the end, I will give you some insight into what our strategy and what our vision and our plans are for the next 3 to 5 years. So in terms of highlights for 2019 and 2020, I think one major highlight for me was the fact that our independent competent persons reported that we had far exceeded the minimum targets that are set in terms of the regulatory codes within which we are set up. As Isaac mentioned, we have to comply with as a broad-based ownership scheme, and we need to reach at least 85% Black South Africans across the country. But by the end of February 2020, our database was able to demonstrate that we had reached 98% of Black South Africans, and we'd reached 59% of those were Black females. This really speaks to our commitment to our intent and to supporting the intention of transformation and financial inclusion for our country, and also speaks to our sustainability because it affords those who give funding to us the opportunity to know that when they're giving money for consumer financial education, that it is indeed being used for those purposes. Our competent persons report also confirmed that all of our programs fully comply with the requirements of the Financial Sector Code. So that for me is a huge highlight in terms of achievement. And I want to thank all of our implementing partners who have to spend a lot of their time gathering data to make sure that we are able to report accordingly. Secondly, a big highlight for us was COVID-19. So as you know, COVID, as we all know, COVID brought many, many challenges to many people, to many organizations, a lot of pain and sadness, but it also brought opportunities for development. And certainly within the ASISA Foundation sphere, there were many opportunities for development for us. And most of all, it helped us to actually accelerate the achievement of a number of our strategic objectives. Of those include the fact that we ended up forming multiple collaborations to enable us to continue reaching our beneficiaries despite the challenges of lockdown. As a result of that, we've actually been able to achieve a significant reach. We've had to rethink our whole mode of operandi, and it proved to be powerful. And later on, I'll give you a bit more information about the reach. And then finally, we were able to implement new programs, different ways of doing things, which we believe now positions us even more strongly to be a thought leader in the sphere of consumer financial education, because we are an industry body, because we interact so much with other people doing consumer education. We are now able to feed into the national as well as international platforms about what works and what is effective in this new normal that we're having to operate in. And as a result of all that's happened, we're also very well positioned for whatever uncertainties the future will bring. We now have various scenarios and various options for each of those scenarios. A further highlight for the 2019-2020 year was the fact that after 8 years of being in operation, by the end of December 2019, we had received funding to the value of 100 million rand. Our total revenue was 100 million rand. And more exciting for me was the fact that by the end of December 2020, we had been able to deploy 100 million rand into multiple programs that reached the end beneficiary. And as you know, we do get audited as well as verified in terms of how the money is spent and also who the recipients or the beneficiaries were of those spending programs. Another really gratifying experience and a highlight for us was the fact that we continue to receive new funding. So mainly we are funded by the members of the ASISA, but over time, and particularly in the period that I'm reporting on, we also receive funding from government entities, which was quite new, and a number of non-ASISA members. And most importantly, we continue to receive funding from our existing members and increased funding. I'm sure you're all aware that with COVID and the impact on the economy, there was a huge concern and uncertainty about funding, but we ended last year standing very strong and able to still plan programs for the new year, and obviously strategize and plan around how we will continue to grow our funding base to be able to continue. I think most importantly is the fact that all our programs are subject to independent monitoring and evaluation, and all of the reports that we receive for our activities during 2019 and 2020 have confirmed that our programs achieve their program objectives, that they have impact, and that in fact they were powerful in building resilience to enable participants to better cope with the crisis of COVID-19. Our program objectives as a minimum is that we will transfer knowledge about various financial education topics that are relevant to our audiences, but we also try to ensure that we are equipping people with financial skills. We then also try to make sure that we impact our participants' attitudes and their mindsets towards financial matters, and that we understand helps to drive more positive behaviors towards improving their financial well-being. And our various program M&E reports have confirmed that we've shown measures of success in each of these objectives. And then finally, and really a positive to note or positive highlight was that we were able to increase our operational capacity. Our activities have just mushroomed over the years, and you'll hear from the changes in how we've gone about our activities. We now needed to develop stronger and bigger databases. We developed our website, and we were able to use our website as part of our educational offerings in our programs, and it was just in time as well. And from an HR capacity, as Isaac has mentioned, we've now been able to appoint Kuvi as our Chief Operations Officer, because we operate and function across the country in all the different provinces. We can move on. So one of the key milestones, I said I was going to speak about the highlight of our reach. So since we began activities in 2013, it was quite a milestone for us by the end of December to be able to report that with all our different programs, we were able to reach 50,000 individuals in different programs and across all the different provinces. So this slide ably demonstrates that. The different color blocks represent the different programs, which I'll give you some more insight into later, and also the different provinces that we've reached. So that was quite an achievement when you consider that at the core of our methodology was face-to-face engagements with individuals. We really found that to be the most powerful way of being able to engage and to achieve those program objectives that I spoke of earlier. So our program generally incorporated a workshop or a full day workshop, or sometimes a shorter workshops, but then that would be, but we would then have multiple shorter workshops with the same individual, and we'd always support it with some auxiliary channels. By the end of February 2020, for that 1 year, we had, as you can see, we'd managed to roll out more programs into multiple provinces, and in fact, we'd reached more than 13,500 people in that manner. And we were well set to continue, But with us, one of our strategic objectives was that we needed to collaborate to enable us to scale and to reach more people, because even the 13,000 for us was a lot, but actually, you know, we have millions of people in our country. Anyway, as you all know, last year, this time, close to this time, by March, we were hit with COVID-19 and the lockdown, and all our face-to-face interventions had to be halted. And with that, we had to come up with new and innovative ways of how to continue reaching people with financial education, which we saw through the year just how critical it was for individuals as the impact of COVID continued to hit different households. So at this point in time, I would really like to compliment and acknowledge the teams that we work with for their creativity, for their agility, for their willingness to just come up with new, different ways of doing things, to think broadly and to just make things happen. There were many a time we were flying that plane while we were still building it, but it all worked out and we were able to develop new concepts. So this slide is attempting to now display a new dashboard, which shows that we pivoted to using multiple different channels to reach the same target group of individuals, because it all had to now be shorter and snappier because it was remote or it was digital. We focused on having multiple engagements on the same topic and using different channels to allow for greater engagement on the same. So for instance, we'd run a webinar and deal with a topic like budgeting and planning, but at that same week, we'd have a campaign on the radio, we would have a chat show, also speak about budgeting and planning. And from there, we might channel people to a closed or a public Facebook group where we had other posts relating to the same topic. And then for further engagement, with deeper, richer engagement on the topics, we would then also go to the webinars. To the website. We'd move people to move the website. So what we are able to now report, or what we have to report, is not so much the hundreds and thousands of people that we've reached in person, but actually we're reporting now millions of people that we are able, through the different reporting mechanisms for each of those channels, we're able to report that we have reached. So it's been a really exciting process for us, and we've been able to develop this concept of learning journeys to take participants through, and our initial M&E reports are indicating that they definitely are achieving the objectives of reaching our target audiences, engaging with them, and having some impact on their well-being during this time. Can move on the slides. So you'll see that not all of our programs engaged all of the channels. We obviously selected those that made the most sense for the target audience and that worked for the target audience and that enabled us to reach them. And you'll also see from the slide that in some instances, we had very small numbers because we were piloting new content, how it got formatted for the new technology modes, and also whether individuals could actually access the technology, access the platforms, and being able to test the efficacy of all of those. But all in all, it's been a very interesting experience, and I think it's been an opportunity for development for all of us, for the entire team, as well as for the participants on the program. You may move the slide. Just to go into a little bit more detail then. So WageWise, you may have heard of, is our program that we run for workers. Because of the FSC code, we generally tend to focus on low-income workers, who generally are also individuals who do not have a very high academic or education level. This program we've been running for the past 6 years now, and Sanlam has been our strategic partner in this program, and they have consistently year on year provided funding for us to do that. In fact, this is the program with which we've reached most participants throughout the country. It's also been a great program for piloting different and new initiatives with the target group, and we were well positioned, in fact, to pivot to the digital platforms because that had already been part of WageWise's programs. So for WageWise, we had a radio chat campaign. We linked the individuals to an open Facebook platform, and we also then sent people to the dedicated website for further information. Later on in the year, when the lockdown restrictions were lifted, we were able to introduce a blended learning approach because we do understand that the value of one-on-one engagements, but because of the riskiness of that, we reduced our contact time. We did still have contact, but then we still then used some of the digital tools or platforms to complement the entire program. I think a key highlight of that program as well was that our M&E team were able to conduct a longitudinal survey of people that had been on our WageWise program since 2017, and they were able to compare them to individuals who had not been on financial education programs. And later on, you will hear from Elena from Genesis, our M&E team, that the results of the survey have definitely indicated a strong the power of financial education to build resilience for times of crisis, but she'll go into more detail there. Another milestone was our program called L+ Earn, which is targeted at young adults, generally those in tertiary institutions. We're very thankful for the funding that we received from the Export Credit Insurance Corporation, which enabled us to focus on this program. The highlight for me of this program was that it helped us to the implications of COVID is that it helped us to overcome one of our key barriers, which was our ability to access the actual physical locations of the universities to access the students. So in the past, we had a lot of challenges with just getting to the universities, especially if they were outside of urban areas. But even once you were there, just trying to get into the timetables of students on a consistent basis. And with our digital program, we were able to reach thousands of students from multiple institutions across the country. At our last count, there were 22 students from 22 different institutions who engaged via our webinar program, as well as our closed Facebook group and on our website. And then we also ran a radio campaign at the same time. And we found the radio stations to be so embracing of our activities, and they themselves further promoted our content on their Facebook pages. So that enabled us to really have a significant reach to young adults across the country. We also try to make sure that our content would be relevant to what people were facing during the COVID time. So for instance, we know mental wellness is a topical issue right now for young adults, and we were able to emphasize how financial wellness contributes positively to an individual's overall wellness, and that was very well received by our students. Our program Build Up is one that we run for people in community who have a common objective. And the highlight for us of this program this year was that we were able to pilot a program that combined entrepreneurial and financial skills for businesses with personal financial skills. We know that with COVID and with the high unemployment rates, this is becoming more and more relevant, the need for individuals to understand how to manage their personal finances, but also how to generate multiple sources of sustainable income for themselves and how to manage and do that. And we were able to pilot that with the Stand Foundation, who was formed to support artists, actually. And so we were able to tailor our program for that, and we look forward to what we can do with that program going forward. Then our Flame program, you might know about it. I think we've got quite a few people in the house who are on the program. This is our financial literacy and micro enterprise program, which is really developed to enable people in community who are running township businesses, small informal businesses, to grow those businesses into sustainable income streams, to create jobs for people in the communities, and to really just build hope in the communities of what can be achieved if it is structured and if one applies oneself. This is normally a 2-year program, and this year, or this version of Flame, which is the second iteration, has been running in 3 different provinces, in Diepsloot, Gauteng, in King Williamstown in the Eastern Cape, as well as in Philippi in the Western Cape. And of course, the participants were really badly hit by COVID. Some of them couldn't access their business sites, and they actually just couldn't trade. So even our planned program had to be rethought as to how we could best support the people on this program. And I have to say, every time I listen to feedback from the program, I am so inspired by the resilience of the human spirit to just persevere, but also by the power of our programs, which have equipped people to pivot their businesses, to persevere. And I think for me, the highlight was when we were able to help some of those businesses to apply for some of the relief funding and to get them set on their way. So whether it was a new business or the existing businesses, they've been able to continue, and we have a high retention rate considering the environment that they were faced. So I think another big thing is that this program was aligned to the SACWA new venture creation modules, not just aligned, we offered it, and people were quite keen to do it, and they had to submit portfolios of evidence, and it was just fascinating the way the participants were prepared to transition to Zoom workshops, to use their cell phones, to just keep going. And it's really been a very powerful, and hopefully you'll hear from Owen later in the testimonials. And then finally, our RFTE, our Retirement Fund Trustee Education Programs, we found it to be so relevant. We have 10 different workshops that are offered, or 10 different courses that are offered by the ASISA Academy. And during 2019-2020, there was high demand for those. We also ended up working very closely with today's trustee. As you might recall, we've developed an online education platform where we help to fund or to co-develop educational supplements that would be available to trustees on an online basis. So by the end of February 2020, we had a number of supplements that had been launched and put on our website, as well as on the Today's Trustee website. We have a strong relationship with the APROS Foundation, who worked with us on Today's Trustee, as well as with Six Capitals, which is focused on that program. And by the end of, when we entered into March 2020, and due to COVID as well, we exited out of the Today's Trustee relationship, and we have now been able to focus on the development of online educational supplements, as well as videos, with a group called Atleha, or under the banner called Atleha, which has been run by Six Capitals and APROS. And it's a joint collaboration with the Academy, ASISA Academy, ASISA Foundation, and those other entities. We know that retirement fund trust education is so critical, especially at this time. The Academy saw an increased demand for the course on death benefits, Section 37C, as well as investment strategies, investment management. And, there's just no doubt about it that as ASISA particularly, we need to continue making this kind of training available for our trustees at this time. You can move to the next slide. So, of course, none of this would have been possible without the continued support of our funders. To date, in the past 8 years of operation, we've had 67 different funders, and I think it speaks to the objective that we set as ASISA and as the ASISA Foundation to pool industry resources for the sake of achieving sustainable change within our country. And just the fact that so many of our members of ASISA have continued to support our initiatives, we are extremely grateful, we are extremely humbled, and we are terribly thankful for the contributions that have been made. Some funders have given for some years and no longer give because they have their own focus areas, but we acknowledge them because they have helped us along our path over this time period. And other funders continue to give regularly each year. And like I said, we were really excited when some funders just continue to give more than before. And we really appreciate those funders who commit to multi-year funding like Sanlam, which enables us to plan and strategize better around our programs. And we were super excited to get funding from the Western Cape Department of Economic Development and Tourism, because we had that common objective with our FLAME program of developing township businesses, and they came along and fully co-funded the program with us. And we also had ECIC who funded and drove our Plus Earn program this past year. So we would really want to appeal to our funders to continue supporting our activities. We know that the economics is bad and challenging for the past year, but we look to you for continued contributions. But we also, as part of our strategy, will be driving to or seeking to enlist more support from the broader financial services sector, as well as other development funding institutions, because we all have a common objective, and we believe that we are standing strong with our programs and we can demonstrate the impact that we are achieving. And then just a brief slide to highlight our partners and collaborators, and to just acknowledge some, because on the one hand, some of them have given us funding and have helped us to oversee the programs to make sure that it's in keeping with what the aspirations have been for the funding. But on the other hand, we've also had organizations like the Financial Planning Institute who have come alongside of us and enabled us actually during the COVID period to be far more powerful and effective with our programs. So for instance, on every radio talk show campaign that we've had a talk show where we've had a certified financial planner in it, or in the webinar series, and they were able to give more in-depth advice and made the program more stronger qualitatively and useful to the participants of the program. So we really want to thank them for their collaborations and for the numerous other entities that have provided us access to beneficiaries. And then finally, we've had our implementing partners. Like I said, we owe them a huge debt, because they have in their hearts carried this torch, this burden, this passion for doing consumer financial education in very challenging times. And together we've come through with some powerful programs. I want to thank Grounded Media, who are also making this whole forum possible today, for their inventiveness and their commitment and their hours that they put in. They run our Build Up program, our WageWise program, as well as our Plus Earn program. Then the next group with our ASISA Academy, which is part of the ASISA Foster the Future group of people. We have the ASISA Academy, 6 Capitals, the Foundation, and today's trustee, enabling us to reach the trustees of retirement funds. The next group driven, the Hope Factory, Cumber Capital and Sovereign Consulting, are our implementing partners on FLAME. They have specific enterprise and supply development skills, and also accreditation for the SAQA courses that we run. And on the right hand side, you'll see that Genesis and Vula Vula have been our independent M&E team, assessing most of our programs, and Greenhouse Foundation has been the ones assessing our FLAME program. We also have recently appointed the Business for Market Research to come on board as our assessors of our trustee education programs. We can continue with the slides. So in conclusion, and just very briefly, our trustees recently met to review our mission and our vision for the next 3 to 5 years. And there's been a complete commitment to the vision with which the foundation was founded, that we really believe in fostering the future of our South African society through providing effective, objective, relevant and targeted consumer financial education to facilitate greater financial inclusion. We believe that vision enables us to align with both ASISA's vision for transformation of the financial sector, as well as the whole financial services sector's aspirations. And of course, it aligns with government's aspirations to achieve financial inclusion. But we believe the way we do that is through enabling greater financial capability through our programs and facilitating more economic participation. And so this means that you may move the slides on, that for our strategy for the next 3 to 5 years, we need to continue focusing our efforts on everything that will enable us to achieve the vision. It means we have to have a very strong stakeholder management plan in place to enable us to harness not just the ASISA membership, but actually the whole financial services sector and other sectors who share common objectives so that we can pool our resources and have that big sustainable impact. We want to demonstrate the impact of how CFE facilitates financial inclusion, and that happens over time. In order to do this and to have this big reach, we need to ensure that our structures are standing strong, that we can demonstrate compliance, but more importantly, that there's good governance in place. And I'm so appreciative and thankful for our Board of Trustees who hold us to account and give us so much insight and guidance in what we need to do. And finally, our aspiration is to be recognized as a thought leader in consumer financial education to influence and help leadership of our country and of all of our captains of industry to understand that financial education is critical to facilitating financial inclusion and to improving people's well-being. And in order for us to do that, we need to continue implementing innovative financial education programs, to learn from those, to share our learnings in broader platforms. And in order for us to have real impact, we need to collaborate to be able to scale and increase our reach. So thank you for listening to me. I trust that you were inspired and that it was insightful, and that you would continue supporting the activities of the ASISA Foundation. Thank you.